It has nothing to do with everything we've established. Of course, any nerd who hears that thing will usually want to punch the people in the face.
So, are you listening DC comics?
Yeah.
And then also possibly buy toys.
Yeah, maybe buy the toys if they're crazy enough. So yeah, we had Mobile Suit G Gundam, which is nothing to do with everything before. We have Gundam Wing and a follow-up direct-to-video production, which has nothing to do with this or these. We have After All Gundam X, which was the third one made in the third year consecutive, and it got axed because no one was watching it because this idea was terrible. Like, you know when you see like records of ratings and you'll see like a 1 or 2% rating at the lowest? It actually scored 0% on some episodes. No one cared. So then they decided, alright, we'll just pack up Gundam and pretend that it doesn't exist. Maybe make some direct-to-video things to sell to the nerds, but we'll just forget about this, sell something else. But then in 1999, it was the 20th anniversary of the original show, made in 1979, so they thought, okay, let's get the original director on. He can make some sort of show that's maybe a closure to it all, and then we'll make sure that we don't market it and don't try to sell it so no one will care about the show, so we can say, ha, we were right, we knew we shouldn't have hired you. So that's what they did and that's how it went down, but it's a good show.
It's a great show.
It's a pretty crazy show, but it's a great show. It's like a post-apocalyptic show where the world's been completely buggered up, but the world's recovered enough that it's at about like 1920s technology. But then people who are left in a space colony on the moon try to come back down to live on the Earth, but the locals aren't very happy about this and no one's communicating properly, so yeah, you get like early 1918 tanks trying to shoot down a gigantic robot and then somehow just surviving. It's a pretty strange show.
Basically it feels like an alternate history Gundam.
Yeah, it's a very strange quirky show, it's cool. Yeah, Bandai decided to do a complete reboot again. But they decided to make a show which took elements from the original, so they made Mobile Suit Gundam Seed. It made bucket loads of money, because it had lots of pretty boys.
And Japan has no taste.
And also that. So then they made a sequel, and that sequel is a crime against humanity. It does have nice pretty boys though. And lots of really nice recycled animation from the previous show. Sometimes they actually forgot to edit the animation again, so it's quite obviously just a scene from the previous show. Those bits are great. So yeah, what was my next slide? I think it's time to talk about Double O. Yeah. Might as well talk about Gundam Double O. It was the most recent alternate universe. It had a Full Metal Alchemist director, and well, it's one of the few clips that I have left, so I'll just play the clip because it's a great little clip to summarize Gundam Double O. So yeah, man, production values have improved somewhat over the last 30 years. Yeah, Gundam Double O is, it's an odd show to talk about because, who here has seen the Double O?
No.
Yeah, it's an interesting show because the start is so bad, it's just really slow, just let's focus on the world building, let's have really flat characters that say celestial being all the time, and we'll steadily introduce some elements, but then I really like the second half of the first season. It's just, we've slowly introduced all these elements, let's actually utilize this one, let's utilize the stuff we've done, let's actually explore some things for a bit and have a situation where the main characters do appear to be in the wrong and they do in fact lose. It's just the second season then becomes solving everything with sparkles and pixie dust. It's pretty, but it's still just solving problems with pixie dust. Saw this like 20 years ago with Counterattack, you know, and then the movie is...
Counterattack is solving things by ramming asteroids into the Earth.
But they're not
That
solving
solves all of the problems.
It doesn't solve problems though, because the asteroid breaks, and then a flying T happens. Charles Counterattack is a really weird ending. but yeah, and then the Gundam 00 movie just kind of encapsulates it all with, we've introduced some great new designs, we've got this amazing battle lined up, and then the purpose of the main character is to fly into a ship and talk to an alien to make it go away.
Giant flower.
Also a flower. And that ending's stupid. Now that's saying a lot because this has had some pretty dumb endings. And pretty dumb characters over time. But yeah, I think it's enough about Gundam for now. I say watch the original show. If you
the original show has a great ending.
The original show has a cool ending and it has some really great moments. There's some really cool ideas and there's some really antiquated stuff in there. Like there's an episode where they're trying to find salt because if you don't have enough salt in your body, you might die. So they spend an entire episode just hunting for salt. They nearly die in the process. Oh, there's the episode where there's just a bunch of men who are all okay, all out of salt won't work, so we'll hop on hover bikes, try and plant bombs on the Gundam and maybe it'll blow up. And then they do it and he disarms all the bombs, they're all, no, we'll never see our family and children again, and die. There's a lot of death in Gundam.
As mentioned, especially women.
Yeah, but women die a lot. And then say silly things before they die because the author hates women.
Alternatively, because Tona's like, oh, you're giving you some characterization. That means someone very close to you is about to die.
Yeah. I love this one because the full context of the scene is she is trying to run off with one of the enemy generals because they've fallen in love. She's about to escape onto a plane, and then her father's all, stop, you can't do that. And she's all, I have a right to decide how to live my life. And he says, no you don't! And she just goes back home. So let's talk about something else. Something a bit more modern, something a bit more masculine. I think this picture basically says all that you need to know, particularly about you. This is from New Get a Robo from about 2004. It's a direct-to-video release. It's basically a sort of remake of the original comic from the 70s, except not really, because in the original comic there's like a bunch of dudes, like a guy who's being disbarred from karate for being too violent, a high school terrorist, and a fat guy who likes anime. And they punch dinosaurs and stab dinosaurs and shoot lasers at dinosaurs. This particular remake shakes it up a bit and has ogres attacking, and it turns out the ogres attacking from the past, because in the past apparently Japan in about the 1400s had flying ships with cannons. So they like travel back to the past, to this sort of past, and they fight some ogres, and there's some flying ogres on UFOs, and they chop up a bunch of stuff, and they swear at a bunch of stuff, and they shoot lasers from their chest thing, and then they use tomahawks to chop up some stuff, and they beat the guy, and then they go back to the present time, and there's some sort of attempted character development that doesn't work at all, and then some gods appear and say, you're right there, your thing is evil, we must stop it, and they say, screw you, and punch him. But then the gods say, we're gods, we're invincible, you can't beat us, and they say, screw you, and punch them. And the gods say, no, really, stop it guys, it's been 2 episodes, cut it out, we're immortal. And they say, screw you guys, and punch them. So then they go into a magical place, and they try to, and the gods are all, we're immortal here, and the guys say, screw you, and punch him some more, and then the gods say, okay, we're dead. It's the best ending, and it makes so much sense. And it's just one of those shows where you just go, I feel like some violence, and I feel like some swearing, and I feel like some big lasers and tomahawks, so I just gotta watch some New Get a Robo, man.
And vomiting in space.
Oh, right, there's like a bit where a guy vomits in the space helmet. That's pretty great. And there's a close-up on a guy's balls at one point. Really? So yeah, if you want hypermasculinity, you watch Get a Robo. So with that, now let's talk about some hypermasculinity that's actually written well. This title is Shin Maziga Shogeki Zetto Hen on television, which is basically the shocking new chapter of Mazinger Z on television. This was a show released in 2009. Unfortunately, it's only got a Spanish release and a Japanese release. Yugen Robo is incidentally available here. Shin Mazinger, it was a director who was quite a good director, and he decided to do a remake of Mazinger Z, which is basically the origin of all badass robot shows. It's a kind of quirky show from the 70s that went on way too long, but basically, there's a normal dude, his grandfather built him a robot, it turns out there's an evil guy trying to take over the world, so use the robot to stop the evil guy. That's basically about it. This particular adaptation, though, decided to take not just elements from the original comic and the original TV show, but it also takes elements from a lot of the original author's other works, which includes like some horror stories, some stories about the Yakuza, some elements of Greek mythology because Greek mythology is cool. So like the robot Mazinger Z was made by the main character's grandfather still, but apparently it's also based on the image of Zeus. And the show has a...
Where Zeus is a giant alien god.
Zeus is an alien god who likes humans. Unlike the other alien gods who think that humans should be squashed. Shin Mazinger, it's an extremely camp show. This show is just extremely shameless in how ridiculous and over-the-top its dialogue is. Like, the narrator is continually making this extreme hyperbole about how great and wonderful and amazing everything is. There's a bit in the first few episodes where they're still introducing the robot in this really drawn out, but actually really nicely drawn out fight, where it's just all these crazy things happening in this one night. There's a point where the main character finally gets to use one of the signature weapons of the robot, which is firing off its fists, the rocket punch. But instead of it's like, oh no, he's doing the rocket punch, oh no, he used that, like you normally get, the red is all, and suddenly, with incredible force, Koji fires his most powerful weapon. Its name is Rocket Punch! And you're, this is great. This is what you watch when you just want to see, once again, you want to see some heroes beating up some guys up, and you want to see some really well-written flashbacks. The show has a lot of flashbacks. But it's all because basically everything that happens throughout the shows, all because some evil scientists decided to take over the world on one night. Unfortunately, pretty much everyone on the show is somehow related to these scientists. And everything goes back to this event, but one thing this director's really cool at is he'll base everything around an event and he'll reveal everything about what happened that night. But it's only from one person's perspective, so we discover a bit later that no, other things are happening when that guy wasn't looking, because they weren't in every scene. So eventually you'll see what seems like a fairly simple story of, oh no, the villains are trying to take over the world, actually has a fair amount of complexity to it. Although it's a camp show, but it's a really cool show and one of my favorites of recent times. So what's next on the list? We have another show from the same director. This is Mobile Fighter G Gundam.